Adventure Ho, Lumineers, and welcome back to another episode of Ducktail Dads. This is Ryan, and I'm joined by Nathaniel. Mack has the night off because he is ill, so sick call night for Mack. He'll hopefully be back with us next week. Best wishes to Mack, and hopefully he heals up quickly from this family cold that's going around for his family. So unfortunate there, but nonetheless, Nathaniel and I are going to be able to talk your ear off for plenty of time, no doubt about that. Nathaniel, what's new in your world?
From a personal perspective, we have just been getting absolutely pounded with snow. It seems like it's never stopping, which I'm very much okay with. As I said, been doing a ton of sledding with my kid, multiple kids actually, which is great to have one of my other little guys come out with us. So yeah, we've been like making like real like tracks, kind of like a luge almost, right? So that's been a ton of fun, despite some of the cold weather. Um, from a Lorcana perspective, I got to play in my second limited format of this set, which was a draft, which had six people in it over the weekend. That was a ton of fun. Once again, limited is just so much fun to like be able to play with different types of cards, get these crazy synergies that otherwise like wouldn't really be a thing because you can't play more than two ink colors, right? So I think it's just such a fun way to play the game and just very fresh and different. We're on like a more aggressive timeline and schedule now, I think, than we've ever really been. Well, the past few sets, it's been this way, right? But like, um, there's still sort of this period of time, right? Like after the first kind of few weeks of discovering these new cards, where then we start to kind of settle into like this is sort of what the meta looks like, and it certainly changes over time. But there's this period of time where I think it is fun to still play these different cards and get this like a refreshing different experience. For that reason, I'm very grateful. Had a ton of fun. Yeah, Ryan, what's new in your world?
So for me, again, enjoying the snowfall that came down, using our new snow blower, which is always a joy to use the new tools around the house. And then going sledding with the little ones, the first year that we've been super interested in it and interacted with it, and so it's been a blast just to get out and go sledding through our yard, just kind of sledding in the sense that I'm just trudging through the snow, pulling a little one in the sled as they try to intentionally tip themselves out every now and then. It's like, oh, you did it again. Let's get back in the sled and keep going. It's a blast though. It's always fun playing outside, frolicking in the snow, and it's just cold enough to keep the snow around, but not too cold to freeze your nose off. And on the Lorcana front, just kind of getting some playsets together, getting ready for Infinity Weekend. Really excited about that, and just playing in some downtime when we have it against the computer AI bots, which is not the highest quality of practice, but at least it's something to stay engaged with the game. And then following along with some of the tournaments that have been happening, some of the bigger tournaments. Most notably, there was an Amber Amethyst. So shout out to one of our other friends, Evan. I don't know if he's been on the podcast yet, but that's been the ink color combination he's been stuck on for as long as I've known his involvement in this game. And so Amber Amethyst getting some love from Zan Syed and taking down a 25K at CCS this weekend, a CCQ as well. So it's a challenge qualifier. And so he won an invite to NA Championships. He won a bunch of money, and he won it on an ink color combination that was, I think, caught a lot of people off guard. And I think we'll talk about it maybe later this week or next week, whenever we get around to it. But the result is kind of on theme with what the format seems to be developing into. And with being an amethyst format, and so it's just play the really good amethyst cards and then just sprinkle in a little bit of whatever other color you want to toss in next to it, whether it's blue or yellow or red or green or gray, whatever it ends up being. Like it's just mostly a purple pile with a handful of other cards that support it. So really congrats to him for taking it down and getting his invite to NA Championships. I know he's been someone that you've been following for a while. At least when you were starting to get into Lorcana, he was someone you paid attention to because he was playing the in color combination you were playing, which was the ever loved Emerald Steel of Diablo discard days. That's where Nathaniel's villain arc started, as everyone well knows, and so far it has developed into less of a villain arc, but still playing Amethyst Steel, which is kind of villainous at the moment. But yeah, Lorcana's always there, and I'm excited for Infinity Weekend. Uh, I love the fact that We had rotation. They promised we're going to support this Infinity format, and they've delivered on that promise. I think Ravensburger and tournament organizers alike have delivered on that promise. And every time I see one of these giant, or these not big giant, but one of these big events, whether it's a DLC or whether it's a CC, like a CCS or a PPG event, tournament organizers are committed to involving Infinity in their weekend offerings. So usually, what I most commonly see is like a main event on starting on Saturday, and then Sunday there's a Infinity main event. So they're always supporting this in some degree. And so it's always good that that's happening. And now we have Infinity Weekend where we get great full art cards. I'm expecting these are going to look beautiful, even though they're not foiled. They're still going to look beautiful. I love the art on the whole new world promo that they're having for this event, and I'm really excited and hopeful that I'll be able to get to an event with y'all and just in general get to an event so we can play some live Lorcana again, which is always a good time. What are you looking forward to about Infinity Weekend? Is there anything that you're most excited for, you would say?
I mean, I think it's a homecoming of sorts in a lot of ways, right? Just you get to see these cards that you haven't seen for a while. And I think the further we get into post rotation world, right? Like the more it'll feel like a fun, different change of pace in a way, right? Like it's not gonna feel like limited, right? But it'll feel like a different way to engage with the game at a certain point where it's like, because it's not like the decks just completely remain unchanged, right? Like a lot of these blue decks are probably going to start playing Cindy, right? Like, sorry, that's the 4 cost uninkable Cinderella from this current set that's a legendary. It's a very good card, and it probably makes its way into decks, right? Like there was a point in time where the decks were so good that like Arcasia like wasn't making a huge impact outside of like Happy as a Clam in blue decks to like really change what decks were doing a lot, and like same thing with Jafar. I do think as they continue to print more cards, like the decks change themselves. I mean, even purple decks are probably including things like Dumbo in them, right? Like I think that's really interesting. So like Infinity will still change, but you get to see how these synergies play into like new card combos. So I think that'll be really fun, right? Like, will we see Ruby Amethyst decks with like Dumbo shenanigans and like the evasive thing that started to kind of catch towards like set 8 with like Ruby Amethyst evasives? Like, does that now have Dumbo and make it even more scary because now they like rush your stuff and then the next turn they exert and draw cards and gain lore? Like, that's insane. So like, I think that will be really interesting. I think there's certainly things I'm like scared to see, like the like Infinity Gauntlet stuff that we talked about, right? Where like Blue Steel and Blue Red can do some like absolutely unbelievable things, and even like Steel Song, right, can really do some incredibly powerful things with a whole new world, and even getting like Beyond the Horizon in there too to sort of do even more crazy things. And I saw even the Infinity event that we played in Milwaukee, where like the Aurora synergy with Steel Song is really scary because now Ariel comes out on turn 2, and so she gets to like sing powerful songs on turn 3. Like you haven't even like started the game yet, and you're like getting Zeused from an Ariel, or she's like singing "Grab Your Sword" or some other thing, right? Like it's just or Whole New World, right? They probably wouldn't do it that early, but it's absolutely crazy like what some of these decks are able to do with some of the newest cards, which is probably why rotation was important. But it does make Infinity feel like this, like, well, we can do some like really powerful things. So I think there's probably going to be at least one game where either me or the opponent will just kind of be like, that was so incredibly overpowered, congrats, and let's go next game. Or it's just like, okay, cool. um you know kind of like some of these like combo decks, right? Like when they like hit the combo line that happens once every few games, it's just like, all right, you got it, that was absolutely crazy, good for you, congrats, and we move on to the next game. There's just like lots of things that can kind of have that level of power in, I think, an Infinity format right now. So I'm excited to just like see some of that happen. I'm also just excited to like play in person again too. A draft event that I went to this last weekend was really, really fun. There's only 6 people there. So it was relatively small. The Infinity events, I think, are going to be 16 or more people at them. So that'll be great, and seeing you guys as well. I think I'm really excited for the fact that it looks like the Ducktail dads, as well as our friends Evan and Connor, will all be at the same event for maybe the first time with all 5. So that's incredible, right? So I'm excited for that, and just like the community aspect, I think. And Also, like being able to play in an event like this where like I'm not gonna feel pressure. Like, I think a set champs, right? It's this sort of intro into a competitive scene for a lot of players, including us. And now that I've done enough of that and I've also played in a DLC, these other events, like I still want to like play well, but I don't feel pressure. Like if I make a mistake or if I don't do as well as I would have wanted, like it's okay, right? Like we're playing for like fun, cool stuff, and also we get these like amazingly beautiful promo cards. So I think that is also exciting because it's just like Lorcana, no pressure. Um, so in some ways, that's also nice as we get closer and closer to set 10 set champs, which will be our first set champs since set 8. So that is also kind of nice as sort of like this final checkpoint before we get to like, okay, now we're going to start doing some maybe more serious testing to get ready for January with set champ season.
All right. For those watching on the video, you may notice that my video changed. I don't know what happened with the technology I was using previously, but we're back online and we're good to go. I believe what I was saying is that you're talking about the overpowered things that you can do in Infinity. You correctly highlighted the Aurora shenanigans. I mean, I'm thinking like, yeah, you mentioned Aurora into Ariel on 2. Even like Aurora into a Cindy plus like an Ursula Vanessa. So now you have Singer 7 and an Aurora. So you could sing Beyond the Horizon just on your opponent to discard them down. And then continue on with your game and be like, hey, nice mulligan. Too bad it doesn't get to actually help you. That just seems like something that's unreal. Like the lines that can do are just crazy. That being said, there's plenty of other powerful decks out there too, so we'll see how it goes. I also feel like the pressure's not on for it since there's not like tiered pricing to it, and I think that's the intention, right? The intention is this is like somewhat of a on-ramp opportunity for new players to be like, hey, look at all these old cards that you maybe picked up super cheap. Now you can play them. Great. And there's no stakes. Just show up, get your shiny new card, play some fun Lorcana, and take off whenever you're done. It should be a good time, and I'm looking forward to it. And I think we almost had all 5 of us, and then someone got sick at a previous set champs, so we only had 4 of us there, if I recall correctly. But now, here we are. Another opportunity for us all 5 to play together. And unfortunately, Mack's not feeling great right now, but I'm hoping he recovers by the time next weekend rolls around. But we will see how that goes. Other things I'm excited for is playing a new color combination. I could go back to Blurple of set 8 plus whatever 9 and 10 added to it, but I figured I'd try something else since I've played Blurple a lot otherwise, anyways. And then I don't know what else to say about Infinity other than I'm just really excited about it. And like I said before, I'm really grateful that Ravensburger and tournament organizers in general are committed to making Infinity format an important aspect of Lorcana and the entire play experience. I'm halfway expecting part of World Championships will be some sort of Infinity format as well. And so that would be super cool to see them supporting it on that highest level as well. So you had this great idea, Nathaniel. We were talking pre-recording of just highlighting some of like the most impactful cards in the Infinity format. Do you want to intro it and kick us off with the first one on your list?
Yeah, so I think it's, we've talked about this card so much on this podcast, but it's probably worth mentioning that beautiful blonde princess, Rapunzel, gifted with healing. Anytime you see an Amber deck, there's a pretty high probability that she's in that deck. It's just such an incredible draw engine for a deck that otherwise doesn't really have a whole lot of draw, which is why that card was extremely expensive for quite some time. So the reason why I call this card out in particular is, yes, it's the draw engine, like that's really big, but like Ryan, you made this really good point a few months ago back when we were talking about the impact that she had on like she warped the meta in some ways, right? Like not only did you have to have an answer for that or a clean answer for Rapunzel, but like you also potentially decisions were very different during the course of the game when there was the threat of a what we call Rapunzel trap. And so for anyone who's maybe listening and has either forgotten about this or because it's been a while or has never played a deck that is trying to do that, if they ever have a character with like 3, but especially like with 4 or 5 willpower, and you leave like a 3 strength character exerted, what they'll probably do is, like, for example, maybe you have a Calhoun and you just like ate up one of their small characters, but they have a Lawrence on the field. What they'll do is they'll use Lawrence to eat your Calhoun, take the 3 damage, and you're like, okay, great, now Lawrence is nerfed, right? No. They play the Rapunzel, heal the 3 damage, so Lawrence goes back to becoming a 4/4, and they draw 3 cards. So that play right there can basically just win that game for the Amber player. In like sometimes, not all the time, but like if that happens, it's really bad. And so same type of thing, right? Like Chernadogs, the green yellow list that was more aggressive. If you ever got Rapunzel trapped into that, it's why they played cards like the Nala that's like a 0/4, is so they could just basically get some maybe early cheat questing in and then eventually trap you into like swinging in for 0, taking damage, and then healing it so they could draw more cards and slap down a lot more characters. So that deck, anytime you see Amber, Rapunzel, very important card in that deck, and it should warp how you play, because if you block them from doing the Rapunzel things, and it's not Steel Song, mind you, because they can just whole new world in that case, but like if they're relying on that as their draw engine and you don't get caught in a Rapunzel trap, you have a pretty good chance of winning the match. So that's just how important it is, right? Like it can completely swing the game for them and snowball so fast. So watch out for Rapunzel gifted with healing. It's probably a 3, if not like 4 of in every Amber deck that you might see if you're going to be playing this weekend.
Yeah, and honestly, I sort of forgot about it to be quite frank with you. And then I like was playing against the computer, and I got Rapunzel trapped by the computer, and I was like, wait, oh, that's right. That is something I need to worry about. I forgot. So that'll be a fun thought experiment to go through this weekend again. Drum up all that old knowledge and play patterns. Next one on our list I wanted to talk about is Hiram, one of the banned cards. And well, why not just throw in the other banned card with that, Fortisphere too. So Hiram being the 4-cost inkable 1/6 quest for 1, and when you play and when you quest, you can banish an item of yours that is in play to draw 2 cards. So just it's a sapphire card that just draws a ton of cards for you, which is incredible when you've been just sending your entire hand to the inkwell basically to just build this massive resource pool. So Hiram is something that'll be constantly played, and again, a meta warping card where you need to have an answer to Hiram, and typically that answer is going to be like a combination of removal cards in steel or playing ruby removal cards to get around it, or just waiting for it to turn sideways, drawing 4 cards for your opponent and then challenging it away. But really, if it draws 6 cards for your opponent, that's a tough spot to come back from, because that's just a lot of extra resources that they have that you do not, and they're just going to burn you out that way. Pairing Hiram with 2 1-cost inkable items that draw a card when they are played in Popsicle and Sapphire and Fortisphere and Steel. If you see Sapphire Steel, you're probably going to see both Popsicle and Fortisphere being played, and again, those kind of build on themselves, and inevitably you'll probably see the 3-cost inkable Bell also being played that can be played for free by banishing an item. So a whole lot of stacking here, basically to say that if you're seeing Sapphire, you're probably going to see Hiram, and you're probably going to see Popsicle, and you're probably going to see Bell, and especially if it's in Steel, you're definitely going to see all of those cards and Fortisphere on top of that. Just efficiently drawing cards and providing ways to dig through the deck to find the exact cards that they need at the exact right time when they need to play them. That's just the way it is, and it'll be a fun way to spend the weekend playing around that Hiram card yet again, because it was kind of nice to be in a healthy format with set 7 and set 8 where Hiram was not around, and so there was an opportunity to really burn out the Sapphire decks of all their cards, and then you can kind of take over from there for any other control decks, or if you're playing an aggro list, just hoping and they don't have as many opportunities to see as many cards in their deck as they once were. So it's nice. It'll be fun now to see how crazy overpowered some of these Sapphire decks can get with that additional card draw on board. What are your thoughts on worrying and thinking about Hiram?
Man, I think I'll be reminded just of like how incredible that card was, because pretty much was guaranteed to draw two because they play it when there's already an item established. But like it's really gonna draw four because it's a 1/6 coming down on turn three, right? Like the six willpower is just such a problem. Like what were they thinking when they printed that with six willpower? Come on, man. Like, give him a little bit of extra strength. He's never going to actually challenge and like take away a couple willpower points, bring him down to like a 4 or like a 3. He could have been like a 2/3 and it would have made a ton of sense. Like, I will throw whatever I need to into this thing or like try to use a removal song to get rid of this. But like getting 6 damage that early in the game is just so crazy. It's why Hiram was such a problem. Yeah, that will be really interesting and scary to see again. Speaking of removing cards, kind of so Hiram is kind of this like early steamroll engine for these blue decks. Sort of the other card that a lot of decks will work towards as a sweep, particularly the Ruby Sapphire variety, is the return of Be Prepared. Another card that we talked about, right? That completely warps an entire meta, how you play the game. If you know that they have that, you might think twice about playing another character as your opponent's going into 7 ink. You might prioritize cards like Pete Games Referee, so you can just block the playing of that card. So Be Prepared, banishing everything on the field. It goes so well with a card, to Ryan's earlier point, right, that like has spent so much resources on just like building a wide inkwell and not really establishing as much of a board presence early in the game, that once it hits that reset button and kind of the boards are just cleared away, they have ink advantage, and Hiram probably created card advantage for them. Now if you play characters, they're probably going to start getting wiped out pretty fast. So you better hope you're close to 20, unless you're kind of also sort of exchanging haymakers with another bigger control deck with your opponent. So be prepared for the Be Prepareds this weekend, because they will probably be flowing, coming down, and wiping your board. So be careful on overcommitting when your opponent's going into 7 ink. Probably the big thing to keep in mind there.
Man, Ruby cards, we're going to see so much Ruby because nobody's been able to play it in set 9 or set 10 yet in Core Constructed. I feel like the other big
True.
Ruby sweeper is Sisu Empowered Sibling, the 8-cost uninkable 5/4 quest for 3, and when played, banish all characters on your opponent's field with 2 strength or less. So a great sweeper against an aggro deck, a great way to get rid of Hiram in an efficient way. If there's anything else on the board, even if you're just banishing 2 characters, that's still pretty efficient for playing a 3-quester with 8 ink. You can also shift for 6 if you happen to have a lower ink cost other Sisu out there. There's a couple of options. I think the 3-cost uninkable and a 3-cost inkable that are both played and are both options for shifting that Sisu down a little earlier. So that's something to keep in mind too. But yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of Ruby this weekend because it hasn't been able to be played, and people are just itching to get back to their Ruby cards that are just so strong at sweeping the board and keeping things under control. I think it'll be fun, but it'll be. I think the Sisu Be Prepared combination is what I liked the least about playing against the Ruby Sapphire decks, just because it's just like darned if you do, darned if you don't. They're gonna have an answer for me no matter what. It just feels like those Ruby cards have answers for every single situation if they're able to find them and dig for them.
Yeah, and one of the other things I think important note too is Ruby Amethyst was probably only ever really the, like, for purple players out there, right? Like, it probably was the only bigger purple deck, right? Where, like, it could do the big purple things that Blurple's doing, but it had the board wipe option in its back pocket, which just really changes up that matchup considerably, because it feels like oftentimes in these purple matchups, it's kind of like you're both drawing cards, you're both getting stuff to board, but if somebody has, like, a board wipe option and the other person doesn't, you can, like, force them into committing a lot of resources to the board just to then clear it. And that feels really unfair if only one player can do that. So I know that can create some very interesting, and I think Mack said this too, right? Like, Ruby is by nature a control-y color. So many of the, like, most impactful cards are higher ink cost in the Ruby ink color. So, oftentimes you're just trying to work up to those really big costs, 7, 8, Be Prepared, Sisus. And once you start getting to those huge cards, it starts to become pretty hard for a lot of decks to hang with you if you're playing that Ruby color and they haven't gotten pretty close to 20. Um, Another card that is actually still around that is still going to be very impactful because it is just such a perfect card in so many ways, and that is Strength of a Raging Fire. What a banger of a song that is from. I'll Make a Man Out of You, Mulan. But that particular card does have some warping capabilities there too, as well, right? Like, you just, songs in general, you're already kind of what we call like cheating out ink. Strength of a Raging Fire being inkable is very, very nice, but also the fact that like this three cost, three character song that is doing four, five, six damage is, it feels pretty unfair that like, your Pete Games referee could like, take out a Hades, Infernal Schemer with by singing this if you had a bunch of characters on the board. Like, it's crazy. That card's just so good. So Strength of Raging Fire, it's still around, but like it definitely will be. That's, I think, I'm kind of seeing with a lot of these cards outside of the really high ink cost, particularly the uninkable ones. They're usually four ofs. So like Hiram, four of in the blue. Strength of Raging Fire in steel decks almost always four of, because it is just that good of a card, and it has been since it came out.
Yeah, other cards that are guaranteed four of in Sapphire, your ramp on two, Tipo and Sail. Guaranteed four of, you're going to see it if you're playing against the Sapphire deck. That's what they're searching for in their mulligan, or when they're picking their first hand. They want to have ramp on two, play something on four. On turn three, play a four cost something. And so those are automatic four ofs in the blue decks. Not much else to say on that. I want to talk about Emerald decks, because there's a handful of cards that are low on my list of cards I ever want to play, but high on my list of cards that I was very glad to not see in rotation after the Fable dropped. So there's two that you have included on your list, and I'll add in a third. So we have Diablo Devoted Herald, which is the 3-cost uninkable 2/2 quest for 1 evasive that can shift by discarding an action card. And this is an emerald. So they play 1-cost Diablo, they look at your hand with the Emerald Diablo. They say, I know where you're going with this, I am safe to play my Diablo. So then their next turn, they shift the Diablo, they sing with the Diablo, they ink for turn, and they play something else. They play an Ursula and they discard something out of your hand, or they play 2 more 1-drops and they I dare you to try to come at me, or something like that. But again, this Diablo then also, when it's exerted, every time your opponent draws on their turn, you also may draw on your, like, when they draw. So it's just this like hand advantage nullifier. It creates this like lopsided advantage that eventually throughout the game, if it sticks around long enough, and it's a must answer. Things like Brawl stuck around in Ruby forever because you needed Diablo answers. So yeah, that's one that I was happy not to see in rotation. And then the other two other ones are both warded aura effect aura characters. So one being Prince John. I don't remember his subtext, but he's a 3-cost uninkable 1/2 quest for 2 with ward. And whenever your opponent discards a card, you may draw a card. And so pairing that with Diablo and all the discard options in Emerald just creates this lopsided hand advantage, where every time you play a discard card now, it becomes a +2 for you because your opponent's losing one and you're gaining one when Prince John's on the field. If you have multiple Prince Johns, it's even better. And also they're warded, so they can't, if you don't ever turn them sideways, they're never at risk unless your opponent happens to be playing a card I highly doubt we will see in Grab Your Swords this weekend, which is a 5-cost uninkable steel song that deals 2 damage to all opposing characters. I don't think we're going to see that because I don't think it was even in lists in set 7 and set 8 when Prince John was still a thing. So I think we'll just have to play around it or play through it rather than challenging it. And then the other warded aura character is the Muses, which I think we'll probably see a lot of. And that's what our Scrooge, our local resident Scrooge Connor, used to great effect in set 8. And again, I was very glad that Muses was not in the rotation list after Fable dropped, because I feel like those warded like aura effect characters are just not interactive enough for a healthy metagame. And so I'm glad that they were not in rotation, and I think we're going to see a lot of those this weekend as well because people haven't been able to play them, and it's something that they really enjoyed if they were playing it pre-rotation, because it is kind of an intoxicating feeling, right? Just having this like one-sided, lopsided hand advantage where your opponent has 0 cards in hand, or they're scared to have a card in hand because they know that you're going to get an extra card in your hand if they have a leftover card. So then there's no questions. You see everything that they have because they're playing it to the board, and you can just deal with it from there. Thoughts on the green, the emerald colors, the emerald cards that we're expecting to see this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, Diablo and Prince John were really the two cards that, like, made Emerald songs or Emerald decks sing, right? Like when you could do that play line and you're starting to get hand advantage from Diablo and then you're bringing their cards down while then drawing off of Prince John. Like, and Ryan, you brought this great point of like questioning when you want to draw, right? Like if I play a Popsicle and they have an exerted Diablo on board, they get to draw when I draw off the Popsicle. So it's like, if you don't answer that Diablo pretty fast, it just snowballs in such an unbelievably quick way that it just feels really bad. And as they're shedding your hand and theirs is just getting really, really wide, it is crazy because and again, meta warping like just completely changes how you play the game. And when you can strip your opponent of so many of their resources that quickly, and it doesn't also cost you a lot, right? Because like in a world where Prince John doesn't exist, like you can play Sudden Chill, but like I'm playing a card and I'm paying 2 ink to make you lose a card. So like there's like a trade there, right? Like I still have to burn my resource to make you burn your resource. But Prince John like turned that on its head because I don't feel the pain from that now, and I just get to keep taking away cards from you. And so that's Prince John is why you could afford to play what I like to lovingly call weenies, because Prince John is a weenie and you're not taking away these big characters on board because you're just taking them away from their hand. So I think, those cards coming back, it'll be really interesting. And, there was like very clear like answers to those too, right? Like, to be fair, to your point, the existence of Diablo made cards like Brawl be really important. Storm Rage On, very important card, but incredibly important against a green deck because that was your very clean answer to remove that bird. And again, that's where the stat line matters, right? Like Diablo, very unfair, 0 ink cost when you're shifting it, just discard the action, you're going to draw cards off of him anyways. But like at least he was a 2 strength, 2 willpower, which was easily answerable for a lot of things. Hiram being a 6 willpower, it was just like such a problem. So I think that was important.
Diablo's a 2/2 until you put him in a hidden cove, and then it becomes really difficult to deal with.
Fair. Yeah, I think very important point, right? Because if you can do that too, and Hidden Cove is a 1 cost, and it's 1 cost to move. So like if you were, like there's a world where you could play that into a Ruby deck, knowing they have Brawl, and just play the Cove, move them in, and be like, you can't Brawl him now. You have to clear the Cove first, and by the time you can actually clear the Cove, I will have drawn several cards from my Diablo, and the value will have already been there. So yeah, great point. And the Muses is also just another interesting thing because it was able to push cards back into hand as like a detempo kind of card, but also so you could discard them from the hand and draw off of Prince John. So it's just like, it was just so ridiculous, some of the play lines you could do. I think, some of the more devastating ones being like you sing a song with something, you bounce with the Muses, and then you discard, and then you draw because you also have a Prince John, which again, Prince John and the Muses can't be touched unless it's like wide board stuff or they're turned sideways. So it just wild green cards. Green, always the weird color, right? That just do weird green things. A great answer, I think, that we saw to some of what green was doing came in the form of set 6, which was the Azurite Sea meta, and that was the rise of cards like Genie and Elsa, the 5th Spirit. Or was that set 5? She was shimmering, yeah, but she Elsa really got a lot of juice when Genie. Yeah, she got a lot of juice when Genie came out because he could be played a turn before, and it was another kind of check to a Diablo, right? Because not only could you draw a card off the Genie, but he's also evasive and he could answer the Diablos in ways that the prior bounce package, Rabbits, could not do. unless they were singing some sort of a removal thing. But the existence of Genie really pushed Diablo out a lot. So Genie still, I think, in an Infinity meta, if it's a purple deck, it's probably going to be a 4 of, right? It's just such a good card. It's a 2/4 body that's evasive, quest for 2, and it replaces itself. Um, Hard to argue with that, right? Like it. And the funny thing is, when that card came out, there was this question like, well, what's really better, right? Because Rabbit gets the card on play and on entry, but it's not evasive, only quest for 1, 2, 3 body. So um, there was like a trade off there. And there were people kind of playing both. So if you were really leaning into the bounce package with like Madam Mims, which will be fun to see Foxes again, because that card's kind of busted. Um, you'll see rabbits. And I think this is where we might really see purple just go crazy with card draw. Because there's a world where you could do like bounce package things with like rabbits and mims and genies and friends on the other side and layer in Dumbo with your evasives, and you're just drawing a million cards. So we'll see. I mean, but like, wow, there could be some play lines that are like truly crazy, where it's just like your whole hand is just some form of draw cards while you're also playing things to the board. So I think that'll be kind of fun to see how that manifests, with purple taking draw to an entirely new level.
You mentioned all these really great purple cards, amethyst cards, and now I'm wondering. I think there's a greater than 50% likelihood that we see a mono amethyst deck and only amethyst cards. That's it. Nothing else, because there's so many strong and effective amethyst cards that are printed, that have been added to the pool in sets 9 and sets in Fabled and Whispers in the Well set 9 and set 10, that it was like borderline possible in set 8, and now it's like very likely that there's going to be there's going to be 100% 60 cards of the amethyst color, and we'll go from there. I don't need anything else. I'll just give me my purple cards and we'll be good, because they're good cards. And apparently drawing cards in the trading card game is a great way to win games. Drawing cards is good. So keep that in mind if you're ever deck building and you want to try a new color. Just try purple, and then you probably won't ever play anything that doesn't include purple, because there's just so much good card draw in it. There is one other
Yeah,
card
coming from
that is
2
Ruby.
purple stands.
Yeah, from a couple of huge stands of purple. One other card that's in Ruby that came in set 6 that is another great answer to the Diablos of the world, and that is Half Shark. Maui Half Shark. The 6-cost inkable, 7/5. Quest for 1, evasive, and whenever you play an action, you gain a lore, and whenever the Half Shark challenges another character, you can return an action from your discard to your hand. Why do they need all that text on there? Who knows? It's a legendary, so they needed to make it really good, I guess. But I think, obviously, we're going to see, with the other Ruby cards coming back, Ruby being a big part of the Infinity meta, I think that we're going to see plenty of Half Sharks, and so having an answer to Half Shark as soon as it's played is very important, so you're not allowing your opponent to just get endless value off of it. There's some loops you can do with cards like Next Stop Olympus that's just got printed in Whispers in the Well, where you could add that in, because I think the loop pre-rotation was One Last Hope and the Ruby Ready action that actually costs ink to play.
Fan the Flames.
Fan the Flames, thank you.
Fan the Flames.
That actually costs ink to play. Whereas now they have a card that if you have Shark on the board, Next Stop Olympus actually doesn't cost any ink to play because of its effect. So I think you can create these endless loops of one-turn questing or one-turn loring, one-turn lorthal. We'll workshop it and we'll come up with another idea. Feel free to leave a comment if you have another idea for what to call these one-turn win mechanics in Lorcana. Yeah, I think we'll see plenty of Half Shark, and making sure that I have an answer to Half Shark in whatever deck I end up playing is highly important, because that's just a card that feels really bad to lose to, because it just kind of keeps you from doing anything at all. Because if you turn anything sideways, it's 7 strength. It's going to challenge. It's going to banish it, and it's 5 willpower. So there's a high likelihood it's going to survive the challenge as well, and be like, hey, I'm still here. Do something about it. So it just kind of freezes the board in every sense of the word, because if they have like a brawl, or if they have a be prepared, or if they have something else in their discard that they want to get back, I don't know, it just becomes this like darned if you do, darned if you don't kind of situation, stuck between a rock and a hard place. And so making sure you have an answer to that is very, very important.
Yeah, I mean that card in particular, like there was an entire, I mean the world champion DKP had built a deck list entirely based on it. It's like literally referred to as the Half Shark build, which is basically a ton of actions with Half Shark so you can get this like incredible burst lore, and you just kind of do some really challenging things where you put like McDuck Manors on the field and you put a Half Shark and say, okay, challenge the location, so then I get to eat your stuff with the shark and play a bunch of actions again and gain lore that way. So it puts this like crazy timer on your opponent. And the Half Shark, to your point, Ryan, like it's another one of these cards where like it's just like sitting there ready on the field, and it is a answer me right away before I absolutely steamroll the game, because that card is scary, and it's especially scary when you start pairing it with things like Pirate's Life, and just yeah, it's a really good card. And there were actually decks. It's such a good card with all that text printed on it that like there were decks that were not really action heavy that like still included a few of these in them because it's just still such a good card that like even just like a couple actions plus this, it was enough synergy there to get burst lore and still create like problems for your opponent. So like I remember seeing this in like some of the like pre-Hiram ban lists that were like focused on like more removal, and like Sisu on coil, or Sisu on ice as it was referred to before Sapphire Coil was printed. They would still include Half Sharks even if it didn't have like the best synergy, because it's just still such a good card. So yeah, I think seeing that card come back will be fun. And yeah, we've kind of, ever since that card was printed, it was like, yeah, this is a big deal. And when Ruby comes back, I would not be surprised if there's a pretty big surge in Half Shark coming back, and more action shenanigans, because it does really provide this like reach for Ruby decks where they can get a lot of lore in one turn just because they can keep playing out more actions, and Half Shark can challenge things and recur those actions. So that's scary. And not many things have that true like board complete freeze, right? Like you can't quest anything while this is sitting there sometimes, which is really scary. So yeah, great call out. It's a great card. It's so good. One of the best I think they've ever printed.
Definitely on the top five list. Easily on the top five list, that card is. They printed a lot of good cards in set 2. They printed Half Shark in set 6. They printed a lot of good cards in set 10 now. I don't know exactly where it would fall. Maybe that's something we could explore in a future episode. Top 5 best all time. But we're definitely going to see a lot of Half Shark with Ruby coming back, because Be Prepared came back and Big Sisu came back for Infinity. It'll be a good time seeing all these cards that we haven't seen in 6 months getting played on the table again and again and again and again, recurring themselves.
Wow, it's been that long. Wow, that's actually wild to think about, that it's actually been that long.
I think it's really only been like 4 months, to be quite honest with you, but it feels like 6 or 8 or 10, because it just Fabled felt like it was only a 2-month set, but it just felt like there was so much happening and getting used to, and especially because we were going to Milwaukee, or going to the DLC Milwaukee event, where we were playing, I think, 6 months worth of games in those 2 months too, just to like get ready for that. There's 6 months of what we would consider our usual game load, just to get ready for that event. Then it feels like it's been a lot longer than it actually has been. But nonetheless, we did see some of them at the Sunday event, and it'll still be fun to see them again here. I do think that every room we walk into will be at least 50% Amber Steel Song, because that seems to be everyone's favorite deck. And when we had that anniversary event, that was kind of this like send off into rotation, it seemed like it was like 2/3 of the room was playing Steel Song that day, just because it was the last hurrah for that deck. But I think it'll be the next hurrah for that deck on Infinity Weekend here.
One important note, though, I think I will say about that is the Steel Song numbers were clearly impacted by the power of blue decks. So like when Hiram was banned and blue kind of got suppressed, Steel Song seemed to just go crazy, because the biggest check to it was now what people felt like was very nerfed. And so I think it will be interesting to see how people respond now that blue decks will very much be back in full force, if they'll want to play Steel Song because like Steel Song's had always been a thing, but I think once Blue really caught on and like Ramp became a big deal, it really took away a lot of what Steel Song wanted to do. And so like that's a very poor matchup, right? Like Blue Red into Steel Song is like really tough for the Steel Song player. Like there's still things they can do and they can still win, but it's really hard. It's probably one of the most lopsided matchups that I can think of. And so I think with them back in full force, it's, it is tough, right? Because it's like you can't do like if you play all these weak characters, right, and they're like only one questers, like when they play the Sisu, it's just like okay, bye to my board. So we'll see. We'll see, because you like don't want to give them resources like whole new world, right? Because like if you give them a ton of resources and they have a huge wide inkwell, like their big characters are really hard to handle then. So we'll see. But yeah, Steel Song was crazy at the end of like post rotation or pre rotation post Hiram ban. So we'll have to see how that plays out in this world now, where like Hiram is very much back. Same with Fortisphere, and we get the full and all the new cards. So yeah, to your point, we haven't seen what that looks like with like some of the other Amber cards that have been printed ever since then, like the Aurora.
The Aurora, I think especially is it kind of takes that every Amber deck to the next level, because you can do some pretty crazy unfair things and just board swarming all across the place. There's nothing else in my mind in terms of impactful cards. So I think we've been talking each other's ears off for long enough. We're going to wrap the episode now. One thing that I did want to include is a couple weeks ago we had one of our listeners comment on one of our episodes. So shout out to our Australian listener. The handle was just a bunch of letters and numbers to my eyes, so I don't have a name attached to this, but just shout out to an Australian listener that commented, hope you enjoy your walk while you're listening to this episode, and hope it's just as peaceful as all the other ones that you've been on. So thanks for listening. It's always a blast to hear comments or to read comments from people that are listening to our episodes, whether it's corrections that we're hearing on misunderstood card text, or just general like, hey, love listening to you while I do XYZ activity in my daily life. So glad you guys are all, I think glad everyone is tuning in, and hopefully you're getting some value and some entertainment out of hearing us just chatter at each other for a few minutes. Nathaniel, anything you wanted to add to the episode for today?
I think just, for anyone out there who's looking to play the Infinity Weekend, I think just have fun with it, right? I mean, it's such a low pressure event. Hopefully you get to see some folks and some friends and slam some cards down and maybe do something different that you haven't done in a while, or try something totally new that you've never done before, right? Ryan mentioned trying different ink colors, right? Like this is a great opportunity to try some different things and see how it works out. So, and maybe even implement some things that you could have otherwise done and changed to your original deck, right? Like maybe you were a Ruby Sapphire player, and now there's all these new Ruby Sapphire cards that have been released in the last couple sets that would take your Ruby Sapphire to new heights, right? So thinking of our resident Louis Mack, and his Ruby Sapphire that he loves so much, right? Like seeing how that changes, right? I think would be fun. So hopefully all of you out there, you do really have fun with this event. I think it's going to be a blast, and I'm excited to recap it next week on how we find the weekend goes.
Very well said. Very well said. All right, well, be sure to check out our Instagram page, and if you are interested, our YouTube channel should have video along with the audio for our podcast now, barring any technical difficulties. And you can always find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. If you just want to hear the audio, that's a great place to find it as well. Without further ado, though, let's get the duck out of here.